Mafia The Old Country has been called boring, forgettable, and even the worst entry into the Mafia series. But here's the thing, every single person who said that is dead wrong, because the vocal minority that was busy complaining about the knife fights, the love stories, and the not so happy ending drowned out almost everybody who was actually talking about what made the game great, like seeing the origins of Lear Galante, the beauty of early 1900s Sicily, and the fact that at its heart, Old Country is the next true successor in the Mafia series. Almost every single criticism that this game faced was either wrong or made in bad faith, and I'm about to prove why. Mafia The Old Country has us playing as Enzo, a man sold into indentured servitude to work the mines belonging to the Spadaro crime family. He eventually escapes and finds safety with the rival Teresi family. Over the course of around 10 hours, you'll see Enzo rising through the ranks, encountering familiar faces like a young Lear Galante, and watching firsthand as his loyalty gets pulled in different directions. During the first act, we see Enzo getting accustomed to his new life, determined to make a name for himself and repay his debt to the family. Teresi's underboss Luca takes him under his wing and acts as a father figure throughout the game, even giving him an ominous warning to stay away from the Don's daughter. And you've probably already guessed that Enzo throws that advice straight out the window. He quickly makes a name for himself, running a horse race against the Spadaro family, and later being tasked with escorting the Don's daughter and her future husband on a little sightseeing tour. A simple drive that goes completely wrong when Enzo and Cesare decide they'd rather goof off than do their jobs. The result, Isabella and Gennaro gets kidnapped. In an epic chase sequence, Enzo and Cesare rescue Isabella. While Cesare takes her back to the compound, Enzo goes after the bandits alone to save Gennaro, single-handedly infiltrating the camp, killing the leader, and rescuing the man. When he returns to the vineyard, the Don is caught between anger and admiration. His incompetence put lives in danger, but he risked his own to fix his mistake. That action earns him the right to become a made man. And that's where things start to get interesting. From there, the plot becomes simple. Not bad, just pretty simple. Enzo quickly becomes the person that Don and Luca turn to when things need to get done. He meets a young Lear Galante and his grandfather, and the two become business partners and friends, working together to ship counterfeit money to Empire Bay. That is, until a member of the Spadaro family turns red and tips off the police about the counterfeit mill, with Spadaro's blessing. From here, a snowball effect occurs. Spadaro moves on a Teresi foundry, Enzo stops the takeover, and a mob war becomes inevitable. And in a Godfather-style moment, Spadaro sends men to assassinate Teresi at the baptism of Luca's second son. The mob war begins, and that's where the pacing starts to become an issue, because it barely gets a chance to breathe. The real flashpoint is a negotiation with the Spadaro family that was supposed to prevent future conflict entirely, only for it to turn into an ambush. But then, in the very next chapter, everything gets resolved. We never get enough time to truly experience what a mob war in early 1900s Sicily would look like, and that is a big missed opportunity and a disappointment. But throughout the entire plot, there's something else that is occurring, something that became the most controversial part of the entire game. People called Mafia The Old Country nothing but a love story, and acted like that was a bad thing. When I came into this game, I read some of the complaints and became worried that it would actually be something pretty cringeworthy. But hey, guess what? It wasn't. And it became clear early on that a lot of these criticisms that was levied against Mafia The Old Country were made in bad faith. And I'm about to explain why. Well, Enzo and Isabella's relationship is at the core of Old Country. The story couldn't be told without it. Mafia has always been a series about protagonists whose loyalty gets pulled in different directions. In Mafia 1, we saw that with Tommy Angelo and Sarah, Tommy turning red specifically to protect his family. In Mafia 2, we saw this with Vito, his loyalty torn between the rules of the Commission and Joe and Henry's greed. The only Mafia game that never really had an Isabella, so to speak, was Mafia 3. The love story in Old Country isn't a deviation from the Mafia formula because it is the Mafia formula, and anyone complaining about it in Old Country while praising the previous games either has the memory of a goldfish or is being deliberately dishonest. And speaking about being deliberately dishonest, the love story complaint is just the beginning. The rest of the complaints follow the same pattern. People criticize Old Country for doing things while conveniently forgetting that Mafia 1 and 2 had these exact same mechanics but never got criticized for it. Take the complaint that the game is linear. People said Old Country never offered a true open world, that it faked one with the big map you can only explore during certain story sections. Now that might sound just a little bit ridiculous and familiar, because Mafia 1 and 2 were exactly the same. Sure, those two games never had any invisible walls, but the game constantly displayed the next objective on the HUD, making it feel like exploration wasn't the point. And even when you could explore, there wasn't much to do outside of collecting collectibles. People were acting like before Old Country, Mafia was a massive open world franchise rivaling Grand Theft Auto. But the reality is, only one Mafia game ever tried to do that, and people absolutely hated it. Then there's the interactive movie claim, and this one is just flat out wrong. While Old Country is heavier on cutscenes than previous games, it doesn't come close to the heights of Metal Gear Solid 4, any Telltale game, or even games like Until Dawn. I never once thought to myself, where the hell is the skip button? What did go through my mind though was, when the hell do I get to shoot somebody? Because make no mistake, the game does start off slow. Over the first 2 hours, you spend that time learning the mechanics without getting into a proper gunfight until the hour-and-a-half mark. This is a legitimate reason to be turned off by the game. Because like a book that needs to grab you in the first paragraph, games have maybe 30 minutes to do the same thing, and Old Country fails at that. And I want to be clear here because I am not blindly defending this game. Mafia The Old Country has real issues, but they are barely mentioned. Instead, what are mentioned are the trumped up ones, like the story being bland and predictable. Predictability isn't always a bad thing. Mafia has always been one of the only game franchises dedicated to mob storytelling. So of course, it's going to take notes from movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas, because that's the genre it belongs in. The issue is people seem to forget that, or at least they do when they talk about Old Country. Every single Mafia game could be described as predictable. The only one that felt genuinely unpredictable was Mafia 2, because almost nobody saw Henry as a rat. In Mafia 1, Tommy's betrayal by Sam was foreshadowed hours before the actual final, before he was actually betrayed. But tell me that that wasn't predictable. Once again, Old Country is being criticized for something the previous games were never held accountable for. And the same thing applies to the knife fights. Old Country has boss fights that involve melee combat, a stabby section every few chapters. People called this repetitive. Meanwhile, Mafia 2 had the exact same boss structure. Instead of knives though, you just used hand-to-hand combat. Right about now, you're probably thinking that everybody is entitled to their opinion, and that my debunks might not be as effective as I think they are. But I'm about to change your mind, because while everyone is entitled to their own opinion, that opinion becomes a lot less valid when it crosses into the line of nitpicking simply to get people to agree with you. And that's exactly what happened here, nitpicking. The real reason most people think Old Country is bad is in the knife fights or the love story. Those were just fuel to be added to an already existent fire. A fire that was started because people didn't like the ending. Now we are about to get into spoiler territory, so consider yourself warned. After the war ends, Isabella and Enzo plan their escape. Everything is in place. As they're about to board a train to leave, the two are caught. Enzo is brought to the mines where he was once enslaved to be killed by none other than Cesare. Isabella is taken back to the compound to await a forced abortion. After a back and forth with the Don and Enzo seemingly escaping, Cesare tries to kill him, but Enzo ends up winning and offers him mercy. Enzo tries to escape once again, but the Don comes after him. In the confrontation that follows, Enzo kills the Don. Cesare reappears, helps Enzo over an embankment, pulls him close, and says he's sorry, right before he stabs him, leaving him to bleed out in the mud. People said that this death came out of nowhere, that it was done for shock value, that it was just plain old bad writing. But those people weren't paying attention to the story. Cesare is the Don's nephew. He believed he would be the successor to the family. That arrogance runs through every scene he's in. When Luca is killed, he expects to replace him, but instead the Don leans on Enzo, the mine worker who showed up with nothing and owed the family everything. Cesare's envy was there from the very beginning. It wasn't even written between the lines because anybody who wasn't blind could see what was going to happen. Him killing Enzo didn't come out of nowhere like these people are saying. It was the only true conclusion to Cesare's character. The only valid complaint people would have about his death would be asking, why the hell didn't Enzo back the fuck up the moment Cesare said he's sorry? Because in a world full of mobsters, you should know exactly what's about to happen when those words are muttered. But Cesare's motivation goes even deeper than jealousy. Think about what he had to work with in that moment. He's at the mine. He witnessed Enzo kill the Don. In Cesare's mind, the calculation is simple. If he eliminates Enzo right then, he returns to the compound as the man who brought his uncle's killer to justice. The respect he spent his entire life chasing, the power that he wanted, could be earned in a single moment. He couldn't have known that the compound would already be in flames when he got back. He couldn't have known that he'd find Isabella standing there with nothing left. All he knew in that moment was that killing Enzo was the move that made sense. So he made it. And when he returned to find the compound in flames and Isabella among the wreckage, he knew he would gain nothing from killing her. And in what could be seen as a last act of kindness to a man who once called him a friend, he hands her a blood-soaked ticket to Empire Bay and lets her go. People want to be agreed with. It is only human nature to seek validation. But simply saying that I hated the ending would only get these people so much sympathy. But if you can build a case by nitpicking things that really shouldn't be issues, a few people are going to nod their heads in agreement. Because when you pile up the bad things, the criticism that this game was bad starts to sound legitimate. But the reality is anyone who has played the other Mafia games will see straight through the lie, because this isn't honest criticism. This is people yelling as loud as they can while thumping their chest like a bunch of apes, hoping that someone out there will validate them. The only Mafia game that genuinely deserved the criticism it got for doing something different was Mafia 3, and Hangar 13 learned from that mistake. Old Country went back to what worked and somehow got criticized for the exact things the previous games were celebrated for. If you did have issues with these mechanics in Mafia 1 and 2, then your criticisms of Old Country are completely founded and valid. But if you conveniently forget the fact that Mafia 1 and 2 shared these same things just to get you point across that Mafia The Old Country is the worst entry in the series next to Mafia 3, then those criticisms are just bullshit. Because you're just throwing your criticisms at the wall, hoping that something will stick. Your opinion, as much as you probably don't want to hear this, isn't actually right. In fact, your opinion isn't wrong either. Your opinion is just your opinion. And this video is just mine, and people will probably disagree with me. They'll probably call me some name in the comment section. It happens all the time. But at the end of the day, everybody is entitled to what they think. But in my honest opinion, most of these criticisms that people are having about Old Country are just big ol' nothing burgers. At the end of the day, if you criticized Mafia The Old Country for the love story, for the lack of open world exploration, for the linear storytelling, but never had these same criticisms when it came to Mafia 1 and 2, where those things are very evident, then it becomes clear that you're just looking for something to complain about, hoping that someone will agree with you and say, you know what, this person is right, Mafia The Old Country is a bad game. But what do you think? Does Mafia The Old Country deserve all this hate? Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've made it this far and enjoy this kind of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button, especially since I am making this video while sick. I hope all of you have an amazing and wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.